Just getting socials figured out. One moment, everybody. You're gonna go away? Yes, I will. Is there anything behind these? Let's see, there shouldn't be. No. Nothing there. Should have looked to see if I could, put that website over there. But we'll be fine for now. Going to be keeping my eyes peeled across my screens because I've got our general output over here, but I have a lot of other information on my third monitor about exit polls, other polling that's taken place over the course of the day, some big storylines that are developing. Obviously, we had some breaking news, 2 pieces of breaking news today. And we don't have the full story on the UPS crash. Seems to have been in a junkyard, so hopefully casualties will be kept at a minimum. Hopefully. We have no idea. Any other information, Sean Duffy is hiding in some, in some closet somewhere, hoping that no one talks to him. Sounds like Club Penguin music. It's bringing me back. Bring me back to my old days. There's no chance that's already. I was gonna say, this can't be real. I already saw a race call, and I call races early. But that's way too early. We don't even have a single vote counted, and they're trying to say Virginia's already been called, so it's a little too early. Perfect. Gonna have to, yeah, I'm just gonna have to do this all through. Gonna just have to do this all through the stream, which is fine. Well, we will deal with that as start sending us your video from the stream software to go live. I did that. Oh, that actually might be where I want to go. That actually might be exactly what I want to do. It's also perfect because now I can do this. I should bump that. I should boost that. There we go. All right. Here we go. You're getting ready. I doubt we're going to get our first vote drop anytime soon, but we are likely going to start getting some information, and I'm just going to go ahead and wait one more moment to see if we can get some of our lovely volunteers some election results on our YouTube. Tell me if you'd like to chat. I also, you know what I have to do? I've got to make sure that I've got the other all of the other election things that these aren't keeping up with, because at least where I'm from, we've got a couple elections on the board. I have to fold this up. My cheat sheet is not cooperating. I feel like that's what I don't want it showing. Once we get going, once we have our first drop, I'm going to go into it, and then after we get our first drop of votes, I will hop into a bit of introduction, maybe go into some prototypes. We're going to keep it kind of running through the night to see what people want, what people request throughout the course of the stream. So, oh, actually, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Let's get this over here. Happy Election Day. I cannot type and speak at the same time. And you know what? Best way to deal with areas in your life where you're having issues is to practice. Practice, get reps. So I'm going to just do it. My name is Jack. And earlier... and I immediately stopped. That's another good part of life. You don't have to commit to everything. And there we go. We got our first results coming in. Let's see where they're coming from. Almost always come from a city first. Yep, Lynchburg. We got our first votes coming in. Yeah, we're gonna get cities first, just because... God, Virginia's just a nightmare. Fairfax, is it the city or the county? Can't tell. Is the county? Yeah, county's called Fairfax. We're gonna be getting a lot of those right away. Richmond coming in. But polls closed. What do you guys have? You don't have to. I don't want to hear from your decision desk AP. You just got tons of money, and I don't need to hear y'all praising yourself. So right now we only have, oh, never mind. I see one little red speck in Buckingham's at the, that is just the county of Buckingham. So that means there's a small number of ballots counted, but it is about a third of them. So only a 10 point would be 1,000 to, or that's a generous roundup. 100,000. So yeah, not a terrible look into what is a minor low population. As you can see, the uncounted votes extremely small. The smaller the circle, the less uncounted they speculate is there. So obviously we're waiting on Fairfax, we're waiting on London, Chesterfield, all around Richmond, all around Norfolk itself, Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach tends to be a little bit redder, and that often has to do with just the fact that you have a lot of people living there that are senior, that are long time entrenched there, and are not getting the same benefits Norfolk is getting. I think Virginia Beach is too big to be considered like a gateway, but you know, Chesapeake's here too. Isle of Wight. It's not an island. I'll go over a little bit later why Virginia is so strange. I do also want to check and make sure we don't have any other... Yeah, I'll crack open. We got plenty of time until our next vote closure, so I'm going to crack open these lieutenant governor results and see if we're going to get a flip in the attorney general's office. Alright, let's get into this. Starting off as, ooh, bouncing numbers all across. What do we get? Some in Augusta, Waynesboro. Alright, my name is Jack Kelly, and I am the founder of PoliGrade, which is this YouTube channel we have here, also a website that we have in development. Pretty excited for how big it has grown in just these past couple of weeks, and very excited about the fact that we have multiple volunteers who are here helping us turn what was in 2022 just my hyperfixation about wanting a better way for people either disenfranchised or forcefully made ignorant by their only sources of information being media operatives with a ulterior motive, trying to get policy beliefs to be as transparent as possible and easy to understand as possible, as easy to understand as possible. So that's where PoliGrade started, and now PoliGrade has really exploded into I mean, a legitimate platform with legitimate ambitions, and that kind of all starts with this election night, with the 2025 election night, where we have a decent number of elections on the board. Obviously, Virginia governor and New Jersey governor are going to be big ones, simply due to the fact that that is the chief executive of an entire state. So going to want to keep an eye on those. They're also pretty good indicators just in terms of voter sentiment right now, especially when you consider there's so much of the left's message has gotten hijacked by people who just don't represent the left in any way, shape, or form. So nights like these are important because you've got, and here's a sneak peek to some of these grades, you've got Spamberger, who's a centrist, you've got Sherrill, who's a liberal, and you're going to see how these numbers shake out against a nationalist Republican in Winsome Earl Sears and a conservative Republican in Jack Citarelli. I'm half Italian, and I expect to be flamed for how poorly I'm saying it, but you know what? We ball. We ball. Because politics ain't supposed to be this deep. When you get people that, don't know what they're doing or who do things intentionally poorly, it gets pretty deep. What the hell is Norfolk is starting to come through. Alright, I was going to say Jay Jones is supposed to be close, and all of a sudden we're seeing these massive numbers for Jay Jones. And it's easy to say, once we get more content rolling out for PoliGrade, you'll be seeing, you'll be hearing from us much more often about predictions and stuff like that. But this let me just tell you right now, governor's race, lieutenant governor's race, they ain't gonna be close. These should both be blue flips. Attorney General is close though. Jason Myers is the incumbent, currently the Attorney General, and Jay Jones he was a former state senator in Virginia, and he was a pretty popular candidate at one point, and then kind of got himself in a bit of a Plattner situation where some texts leaked, and it was like most things that you see, just saying stupid stuff. Stuff that's not very, it's not really end of the world, but just really stupid, immature things you shouldn't be saying. Stuff about, how much he dislikes his colleagues. But then it got into stuff like, I think one of the quotes, I don't know the exact verbiage, but I know for sure that he said along the lines of, if I had a gun, I'd kill a Republican colleague of mine before, like, any of these other horrific world leaders. And the person he was texting was like, dude, don't say that. And it was like, oh, okay. So for Jay Jones, just some really immature, poor decisions. And in the lead up to this election, I had a lot of conversation with people who asked, do you find that to be disqualifying? And I was like, it depends. I think that it certainly requires some oversight and it certainly requires some further discussion. But one of the really unfortunate things about the media, as I have two tabs open for him, one of the really unfortunate things about the media is if a subject doesn't stick, then it disappears. And that's not how things should be. If something is really important, if something is big enough or is impactful enough that it would change how many people vote, then it should be front of mind. It should be something that everyone is talking about. And when the media decides, we got different stuff to talk about. We don't want to talk about the Virginia Attorney General's election, and it goes away, no one's going to talk about it. So when the question gets asked to me, do you think that this is disqualifying? I would say I live in Massachusetts, not Virginia, and the people of Virginia have been steamrolled content-wise into forgetting that this ever happened. So it doesn't really matter because they're just not going to. It's like Mayor Wu here in Boston. She had a huge controversy with outdoor. Why is this stop? She had a huge controversy with outdoor dining and not putting out permits and not extending outdoor dining, and people thought it was going to be a really big deal. And then she had the Mass on Cass. There's a large homeless encampment in Boston, and our previous acting mayor, Mayor Marty Walsh, and then Michelle Wu all implemented the exact same strategy. We are going to send in the police. We are going to completely clear the camps out because there's a lot of crime, a lot of drug use. It's just a dangerous area. So we're just going to clear it out. And it didn't work when Walsh did it. It didn't work when the acting mayor did it. And would you be shocked? It didn't work when Wu did it. So that was a very justifiable, as we do see Virginia Beach coming in a little bit red, as I said earlier. That was one of those moments where it's like, these are all big, legitimate criticisms that, while in the grand scheme of things, should be weighed against the total body of this politician's work. These are certainly negatives that you can point to and say, that is something that I am going to hold against you. Maybe not, completely get me not to vote for you ever again, as my camera is now sabotaging me. We're a little bit back. But these controversies came and went, and no one talked about them. And then Michelle Wu went into a primary. Here we go. This is what I wanted to. Jay Jones, only 2% have come in, and things are narrowing very much. And Chesterfield's actually pretty close. Yeah, you don't want to be this close this around. Political polls on Twitter someone on political polls on Twitter has got to keep it up. Oh, and it's CNN. That's even worse. CNN just put out a poll that said, man, Sears 53, Spanberger 53. I'm assuming they're saying, based on exit polls, the male vote is around tied between Spanberger and Winsome. Apparently, they polled 106% of people as well. CNN, absolute dumpster fire of a network. But I just love seeing a tweet, man, Sears 53, Spanberger 53. Like, there's so many things to complain about and to point out and be like, that's embarrassing. But we're starting to see Jones slip back. We have already seen, as it looks like we're getting real-time updates, 3% coming in. We are starting to see some places calling these elections. I don't know if they have the same standards. I know my standards for calling an election are pretty, like, I've never made a wrong call, but I've also abstained from making calls multiple times. So with 4% in, within 5 points, not calling it. I am willing to bet I'm willing to bet quite a lot that this election is going to go Representative Spanberger's way, or former Representative Spanberger's way, but I'm not ready to call it. Now, Decision Desk, I want to get this right, Decision Desk HQ is projecting Abigail Spanberger to win the Virginia governor's election, but me personally, I'd like to wait a little bit. I'd like to see a little bit more outside of 5%, or 10%, excuse me. I'd like to see a little bit outside of it. And for those of you reasonably wondering what the hell, like, why should we listen to your opinion on any of these things? You just have a website. That's a totally fair thing to wonder. I do have quite a history in politics, not only in Massachusetts. I almost worded that in a way that would have been extremely misleading. My experience and my portfolio is exclusively in Massachusetts, but my coverage of national politics goes as long, just never in a professional capacity until now. I have been working in statewide and local-wide policy and campaigning for the past 8 years. I'm the first member of Gen Z elected to office in the state of Massachusetts, and all of that mixed with a extreme hyperfixation on politics that we will go into later when we take a look at this beautiful thing we have here, as well as, we'll look at both prototypes. So we have two incredible developers with us right now, volunteering their time. How kind of them, I know. And we're working on multiple versions of our website to get it up and running, to get you guys the best service possible. And now we're in a position where if this copyright-free stuff doesn't autoplay, you know what? I might just scream. You might just find me screaming. But anyway, I do have many, 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 many years of experience looking at these things, and I'm also willing to admit that I'm not perfect. You have a lot of polling services and a lot of networks that will very much try to sell you the idea that we've pined over the numbers, we've got everything, and then you've got some of the greatest clips in Fox News history where they make a decision and they then bring on the person in charge of making those decisions and chastise them live on television for calling the election for someone they didn't want to win. Those are some of my favorite moments I've seen over the years. But I'm not interested in making crazy controversial calls. I'm interested in getting easy to digest factual information to as many people as I possibly can, to help as many people as I possibly can to either get back into politics or get in the first place without being swept up in the 24-hour cycle with the social media, just mass of nonsense and bots and people who only represent an extremely small percentage of those involved in politics. But because it's all you're seeing as you're scrolling, it's very easy to think in that moment, it's understandable in that moment to come to the conclusion that this is everything. This is all that there is. So, want to really just pull away from that. Actually, I do want to see this. I do want to see this metric just for a moment, because we are going to be seeing, obviously, a lot of deep red. Virginia's map. Actually, this is a perfect time to go over Virginia's maps while we have a small respite as we wait for these races to come in, and we're also a minute away from the Cincinnati mayor's election coming through. As you see, Mayeris taking quite a lead. I do believe that what we are seeing is including mail-in or early because we've been seeing those numbers over the past couple of days in Virginia, and it has been quite left favoring. So already can tell you that this is not a good look. If you are Jay Jones, you are probably most likely getting a little nervous at this point if you are Jay Jones. And again, if you see me shifting my eyes over, I am looking at a lot of other pieces of information, not just the pure votes, as we now see ties erupting for the lieutenant governor, for the attorney general. Okay, first thing we want to talk about, though, is why does the map look so dumb? And that's a great point, because you look at, here it doesn't look as dumb, but when you look at the counties colored in, you go, God, that's one of the most hideous looking maps I've ever seen in my life. And like most things in Virginia's history, it has everything to do with slavery. Because, as many people know, Virginia was the northmost state to join the Confederate and declare itself a slave state. And one of the things that happened post the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, so on and so forth, was the decision to make every single city in Virginia an independent district, for lack of a better term. I don't know if they use the term county or not, but as you can see, you've got, you have Fairfax County. Where is it? Yeah, Fairfax County, but then you've got Alexandria, you got Arlington, Falls Church is in there too. You have the actual Fairfax itself in the middle there. Down here you've got a Manassas Park, but around that you've got Prince William, which is red. And you see it all across. You got Lynchburg, Roanoke, and then Roanoke City, Norfolk, and then you have Portsmouth, Louisiana. We got 8%. That's pretty good. Caroline. Got a lot of people coming in here. But really, their decision desk. What are they? Oh, I was like, what do they got that I don't? And I go, they're just paying attention, as we're going to see these numbers bouncing all night. And wanted to give that brief little explanation, because we're going to be looking at a lot of maps tonight, and not all of them are going to be as strange looking as this one is. And as I go into that, time to look across at some of these candidates, because a big part of what we do here is giving you information about the candidates as we head back to our overall view. The major elections that we focused on for this election day, this first election day coverage by PoliGrade, were the Virginia governor's race, the New Jersey governor's race, the New York City, New York City mayor's race, and then the Texas U.S. House District 18th special election. And the reason that I didn't go into some of these other mayor's races, even my own, closest mayor's races in Worcester, although I did do some Worcester-related stuff, or Boston, stuff like that, is simply because it was not very newsworthy. And that, I think that goes to show just how big of a problem our political cycle being completely run by news networks is, because Mayor Wu wasn't making major news. I believe Andres is the name here. Yeah, Andre Dickens, mayor of Atlanta, wasn't making national news. And now that doesn't mean you don't have to get out to vote if you live there. It doesn't mean you don't have to get acclimated with your candidates. That doesn't mean that you don't have to get acclimated with your city councilors. But it does mean that when you're someone like me, who, as you'll see here on the politicians, has graded 589 elected officials, that's a lot of people. And when I'm doing an event like this, I want to get the best information out there possible, so that means that we are going to have to make some sacrifices somewhere while the team is still small. Currently, I am the only person going through and grading everything. But it is not just solely based off my gut. Important to know, we do have criteria. We do look at policy, and we do look at all of their policy, which is not just, what their campaign website says, what they say in interviews, what they have previously voted for in other political positions that they've held. And important to note while I'm speaking, because you're always going to have breaking news during an election night, projected winner according to Newswire Elections, Abigail Spanberger. And I did say earlier that once we got outside of 10%, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. And seeing as we're getting pretty close in Fairfax, in Loudoun, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Fairfax still has a lot to vote. Norfolk, we still haven't seen much out of. Brunswick, we're seeing a huge shift. Huge shifts in Northampton, although I don't know what that actual, not actually a large amount. But I do think it is appropriate, while I talk about the candidates briefly, because once we call this, we're probably going to move on to some other stuff. But I'll go ahead. You know what? First call in PoliGrade's young history, we're going to call Abigail Spanberger winning Virginia governor, former House representative of Virginia's 7th district. She is graded as a centrist, with her most progressive graded criteria being civil rights. The 10 criteria that we look at are economic policy, business and labor, healthcare, education, environment. Can I get them all without looking? Civil rights, voting rights, immigration and foreign affairs, public safety, and messaging. Got them all. That's how you know that I do a good job. I do my research. So her most progressive stance was on civil rights, going out of her way to make sure that minority communities within Virginia knew that she would be protecting them. And a lot of centrist graded values throughout the rest of it. But centrist not in a we're going to sit on our hands and we're going to status quo, just centrist in terms of we are going to make forward progress and we're going to do what's right. But we are not going to try and, put our heads down and slam through, a ton of walls. We are going to do what is possible right in front of us. And that's not something that should be attacked, in my opinion. As long as the objective is to better people's lives, then I don't think that we should be trying to kick people out or, try and make, people, these purity tests that are, arbitrarily administered. It's ridiculous. And as we see this with 20% of the vote outside of 10%, I'm going to go ahead and call this as well for Lieutenant Governor candidate Hashmi. Oh, I apologize. I didn't look into this one enough. I was pretty obsessed in this race with John Reed. He's a radio anchor. I'm not sure exactly what you would call his position, but he had a very interesting entrance into this race where he was attacked. I think it's pretty appropriate to say that he was attacked by his, at the time, governor, Glenn Youngkin. Despite also being a Republican, he was attacked monetarily through advertisements funded by Glenn Youngkin and his allies. He was attacked just straight up in the media and asked not to run because he was the only candidate running for lieutenant governor, meaning he would win by default because there's no one to primary him. And the reason being was that he is openly gay. So you have all of the Republican top officials in Virginia, one who is currently elected as governor, and one, the lieutenant governor, running for governor, who you would be running side by side, saying, we don't want this guy anywhere near this election. And he had to come out and put out a statement, and it was one of the most, it was the strangest, like, political video I'd ever seen, because he was walking this strange tightrope, and some people showed some sympathy for it, and I understand that, but I think that when you're somewhat acknowledging some of these issues but not fully, like, diving all the way into them, you're showing some level of complacency. And he had to pretty much put out a video saying, hey, I'm not going to stand for being attacked for, you know, who I am and who I love, but at the same time, please, please, guys, I understand you're very homophobic, but please still vote for me. It was a very odd video. I'd urge people to go out and look for it. But you're a Republican in 2025. So much of the Republican platform is attacking the LGBTQ. It's just so impossible to run in an executive role like this. If you're running for a House seat, I can see how you can get around it, how you can even use it to your benefit by saying, you know, look at me, I'm, you know, one of the few members of the LGBTQ who believes in conservative rights and all this stuff. And in that small vacuum of a district, you can make it work. But in a statewide election, it's just a really difficult thing to work in a campaign of this magnitude. So running against who I thought was like the riskiest lieutenant governor, because Hashmi is extremely progressive. And so you have that dichotomy of Abigail Spanberger, centrist, and even going out of their way to be like, I'm not sure that Virginia wants to look into redistricting because of efforts in Texas and Ohio and Indiana and Missouri and stuff like that. We're not sure we want to go down that avenue. And her kind of laissez-faire approach towards repealing right to work, which for those of you who don't know, right to work is a piece of legislation. I don't know if it goes by different names in different states. It is just kind of colloquially, I can never say that right, known as the right to work. And it pretty much just bans the practice of unionization and collective bargaining, and it spreads the false ideal that unions make it difficult for people to find jobs, essentially just saying because businesses have to protect their workers and businesses are less likely to employ people if they have to protect them. It's an odd argument. But Spanberger has said in the past that she is not for repealing right to work. And when I was doing her grade, I'm not going to show y'all how the sausage is made, not because I don't want you to see, but mostly because I don't want you to see how my shorthand is so crazy and only makes sense to me in my brain. She does have a lot of like business and labor specific policies, and I mean like raising the minimum wage for 15%, you know, using PLAs, which are union agreements on all state projects, essentially saying if you are going to win a contract to do a large state project, you have to hire union workers. Expanded apprenticeships, paid internships, work-based learning, guaranteed paid sick leave, paid family and medical leave programs, but also won't repeal right to work, which does an enormous damage to your unions. So that was a very strange thing. And as you know, this is going to be like pulling back, almost changing subjects a little bit. I'm using AP for my election data because I will not support the New York Times and the other. I won't support the New York Times. I won't support CNN and all of the other major outlets that track this kind of data have terrible interfaces and do not show enough information. So I am using the AP. The only difficulty with the AP is that they do not like to call elections, which is kind of a reason I actually like doing it, because I can call them myself early and look, I was going to say look cool, but I don't think anyone's looking at any of this and being like, damn, you know what that guy is? Cool. They're looking at 589 elected officials by policy alignment, and they're like, that guy is a nerd. But you know what? No, I was going to say I'd rather be smart than cool, but I'd rather be cool than smart. I think everyone would rather be cool than smart. It's too early in the night. We don't have enough vote closures for me to start rambling. But Hajmi getting elected, back to the right to work and back to the progressive and centrist executive office. In a state like Virginia, where you're going to be electing your lieutenant governor and your governor separately rather than on a single ticket, I like this balance, because at least in Massachusetts, I know the lieutenant governor, which is a ticket system, or excuse me, it is an elected, so you elect a lieutenant governor and you elect a governor, but then once it goes to the general election, then they become a ticket. So you get to choose in the primary who's going to be your governor, who's going to be your lieutenant governor, but then once the general rolls around, you get one choice. Whereas in Virginia, it could have been Spamberger and John Reed. It could have been Winsome Earls Sears and Hajmi. You know, that's a reality, and it makes it very weird, and it makes the government run very inefficiently, and it's just sucks, and it's stupid, and I don't understand why states do it, but I live in the greatest state in the country, Massachusetts, and even we do some stuff poorly. So I can't imagine, you know, we got ranked #1 in quality of life out of all 50 states, while taking into consideration second highest cost of living, which sucks, and we're working on it. But getting ranked #1 is good. I'm going to point out some other elections that are currently happening that aren't, unfortunately, aren't big enough to get coverage on something like the AP, but still important to call out. In the Georgia Public Service Commission, we have in Commissioner 2, so the 2nd District, Alicia Johnson is projected to win. That is a flip from red to blue. We also have Peter Hubbard, a flip from red to blue in the Public Service Commission. Now, as I said previously, I might know a lot about politics, but I don't know everything. So if you, right now, gun to my head, said, what does the Public Service Commission of Georgia do? I would say, I'm not sure. But what I will do, because I am a good person, is I'm going to look it up. Public Service Commission, Georgia. I don't want the election. I just want to know what they do. What do y'all do? I don't want to know about what your meetings are like. Gas and utility programs. Okay. That's something. What do you do? Information. Meet the rules. Wow. Wow. I mean, talk about informational, guys. I mean, look, take a look at this. You want a year 2000 Readiness Act. What the hell is this? Oh, it got repealed, so who gives a shit? I get what are you? I just want to know what you guys do. Hearings, comments, they're married customers who can't afford gas, electricity, yeah. The mission of the Georgia Public Service Commission is to exercise its authority and influence to ensure that customers receive safe, reliable, and reasonably priced telecommunications, electric, and natural gas services from financially viable and technically competent companies. Okay, so it looks like who's out? Meet the commission. Who's out? This guy's still there. This guy's out of there. So, Mr. Fitzjohnson, you're out. Mr. Tim Eccles, you're out. Welcome, Alicia Johnson and Peter Hubbard. Everyone now, by the way, okay, so that's what that election does. Everyone is calling Spamberger and Hajmi. Everyone. So it is safe to say, safe to call Spamberger once, you know, all the votes are cast going to win. And I mean, especially when you look at how steep a lot of these margin shifts are in places like Fredericksburg. You look at how high the voter turnout is there, and then you look at the actual number. So it shifted from 60% to 72% and ended up with 5,000, and we're not even done yet. That's a huge bump in votes that if I could do math off the top of my head, I could tell you the number. I'm going to estimate with it being at least 750 extra votes there. And you're seeing huge numbers out of Fairfax, and you're seeing how big of a spike even Fairfax City went from 64% to 70%. That's going to net you a ton of extra votes in a massive city like that. And then the Fairfax County overall, it's a very blue county. Same with Loudoun, Chesterfield, Richmond, Virginia Beach flipping over blue from earlier. And this is one of the biggest things. And this is one of the reasons you have a lot of people calling it. And this is where you get into the science. The science in calling an election is you see these big circles. The bigger the circle, the more uncounted votes they estimate are out there. So when you look at all these rural areas, when you look at all the areas that are red, very few amount of ballots still out there. You know, we pretty much have all the votes in this area that we're going to get. But when you look at Richmond, which is all blue, we have a lot more to go. When you look down here, the southeastern edge, in the Norfolk area, a lot more to go, and it's very blue. And then when you look up here, the deepest blue parts, like over here in Albemarle, it's pretty deep blue, but we've gotten most of those. When you look at these deep, deep blue places up here in the northern part of Virginia, there's so many votes still outstanding that it's so easy to just be like, yeah, this trend is going to continue, and with 30% of the vote cast, we're going to see this area, and this area carry it. And looking at some other areas across the state, it does look like we have hit over a quarter of the vote in one of the most competitive elections, House District 73, which is in Chesterfield. Can I remember where that is? Chesterfield. Where are you, Chesterfield? Where are you? Is it Western Chesterfield County? Is like northwestern, or is it like western? Is it like western? Where are you at, Chesterfield? It says that the Democratic candidate Leslie Mehta is projected to win, but as of right now, they are just about a point behind. I can't even tell you where counties in Massachusetts are, and I'm digging around here in Virginia trying to tell you where these counties are. For God's sake. Is it Roanoke? Around Roanoke? No, it's not Franklin. I've looked at all these. All right, whatever. We'll look at those We'll look at those totals later when we come back. I want to take a look back now at this Attorney General's race. If you weren't here earlier, the reason this election is so close, not only because of the incumbent boost that Jason Myers gets, but also the fact that Jay Jones talked about shooting Republican colleagues, and there's a video of him earlier today that alleged him kicking a dog. So just there's a lot going on with this guy. And I did mention earlier the damage done by the media in politics, where this story got picked up. It was news for about 2 days, and then it disappeared, and no one talked about it. And it's like, well, it didn't stick, so it's not going to affect them. And the fact that that's how elections can run is crazy. Cincinnati has been closed for a couple of hours. Jesus, a couple of hours. Has been closed for 24 minutes. 24 minutes, couple hours. Same thing. But don't have any results yet. It's nonpartisan, but I do believe that this gentleman is a Democrat. Yes, he is. Current incumbent. Oh, this is the guy who's facing J.D. Vance's brother. Oh, I forgot about that. coffee shop owner and half-brother of J.D. Vance. Well, I mean, they should just make him mayor. Oh, yeah, listen to those credentials. Damn, this is close still. How close are we? Yeah, 1% at 30. I mean, elections tend to get redder as they go because because of years of attacks on early voting, mail-in voting, absentee voting, the right has done worse with those types of voting because they themselves attack them. So over the course of a night, you'll see generally big leads at the start and then another big burst towards the middle when some more of those, or this, like the second half of those early and mail-in votes are counted for the Democratic candidate. And then if enough of a lead has been built by that Dem, you'll generally see a race get called. But in this case, when it's this close, you really got to take it down to the wire. Wait till you get to that like 95% voted, and then you'll be able to see what really is, you know, who you're really going to end up with for the next couple of years. Miami vote. What's going on in Miami, bruh? One of the greatest memes to ever be dropped. Ackman is still convinced Cuomo is going to win. Oof, oh my god. And then he suggested Cuomo adopt the slogan MNYGA, make New York great again. NYGA. Say that as a word, and I think you'll understand why that's a bad idea. Jay Jones, I mean, this is going to be close. I don't know why I'm even looking at these two anymore. I guess I just want to keep up on them. But Jay Jones, he's in a good spot now. Because, again, like I said earlier, you look at where ballots aren't counted. And, you know, Maier's only going to get a couple more here. Roanoke. Apologize for the yawning. I've been sick the past couple days, so my rest hasn't been where I'd like it to be. Roanoke is going to be big, although I can't see if Roanoke City is here. But it's not that much. Yeah, it's not enough. That's not enough to outpace what Maier's is going to get here. And probably whatever he picks up in Franklin is going to outweigh that. But again, you look at Richmond, there's a pretty healthy lead in Richmond City and Chesterfield. Is that the Chesterfield they were talking about earlier? Who did I just got straight up bamboozled. Who the hell tricked me? Uncrewed on Twitter. In the rapidly growing western Chesterfield County. Oh, it's... Alright, never mind. I'm the dummy. I'm the dummy. Put my hand up. I'm willing to admit when I'm the dummy. Not talking about Chesterfield being a western Virginia county. He was talking about western Chesterfield County. That's alright. You know what? I put my hand up. You got me. I don't know Virginia like I should. But while we're doing it, let's take a look at Virginia in our politician grades on PoliGrade's website coming soon. And as you take a look here, updated as of today. Gonna get updated with the Texas 18. I've already got all the candidates graded. So if there's a runoff, we'll wait. Obviously, if there's no runoff, then we'll just have them and be able to slot them in right away. But you take a look. Right now, Glenn Youngkin, he's the governor. He's a nationalist. Mark Warner, liberal. Tim Kaine of 2016 vice presidential candidate fame, liberal as well. And I'll go over the grades in a moment because I think it's really important as we just make sure to... Oh, they did call it. AP has called it. Abigail Spanberger, first woman to ever govern the state of Virginia. Congratulations. I think that a lot of people take those superlatives for granted and say that they don't matter. And I'm obviously going to be a tiny bit biased because I first Gen Z elected official in Massachusetts, even though that's one of those matter of times. There's so many people that are in a generation that you really don't like. It's someone's going to get it eventually. But when it's such a big accomplishment like this, there have been people who have run for this seat before and not been able to do it. So when you do break that barrier, when you no longer have to go into an election and be told, you know, if you win this, you would be the first woman to ever win this. When that is gone and that barrier is broken, it allows so much more equity in these seats. So I don't think that's something that should be taken for granted. And I know a lot of people don't run on it. I have not once seen Abigail say, I want to win because I want to be the first woman to represent Virginia as governor, but I do still think that she deserves a decent amount of congrats, not only obviously for winning in such a commanding fashion, but also for breaking that barrier. Thank you and congratulations, Abigail Spanberger. And we'll see, this will be the first Muslim woman to represent, probably first Muslim at all, period. It was already spoken about by Decision Desk about what accomplishments Hashmi is going to get upon that race being called first Muslim woman in statewide office. That was the accomplishment there. Statewide office. Again, another barrier broken, very impressive, and hopefully that helps a lot of people going forward. And as we pop back over here, as I just want to check, not yet at 50%. Once we get to 50%, we'll really lock in to that. But going back over everyone, Rob Whitman is a nationalist. He is likely... Oh, no. I'm getting my Rust Belts confused. This is in North Carolina. Rob Whitman, nationalist, the furthest right party there can be. Jen Kiggins, conservative. That's the middle right. Bobby Scott, liberal. Jennifer McClellan, progressive. John McGuire, nationalist. Ben Klein, nationalist. Eugene Vindeman, centrist. He is new to the House, freshman. Don Beyer, progressive, a long-time member of the Virginia House, was on a committee to start looking at AI and ways that we can look to regulate AI and make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, like, you know, the internet and social media and all the other stuff that the government was way behind on regulating and looking at. And so, being an older gentleman, he decided that the way to get up to speed on AI to a point where he felt comfortable advocating on behalf of not only his constituents, but for the betterment of the country, he enrolled in a master's program at a college, a big college, the name is escaping me, but in his district, because he's an old man. And in his mind, as an old man, when you want to get educated about something, you go to school. So he takes classes, in-person classes. Luckily, he's in Virginia, so it's not that far a trek from D.C., but I don't know. I found that charming. I know there's a lot of ageism in politics right now. My background has a lot of senior volunteering and you know, my family members who are in geriatrics, very close to my grandparents. So I've always kind of shed that idea that if you're old, you have to get out. I think it's ridiculous. But just seeing that where he's like, well, I want to try and help my constituents and I have to learn about this thing, so I went to school for it. I'm like, that's kind of endearing. Morgan Griffith, also new, conservative. Subramayam, apologies, liberal. And James Walkinshaw, progressive, also new. It's also important to mention these are preliminary grades, as all of these people have been graded by me, myself, and I alone. And I would love to get some people who could look at the same stuff I'm looking at and come in from a fresh perspective and say, hey, you know, I actually think that this is more liberal-leaning than progressive. Oh, tell me why. And then they say why, and they go, oh, that's a great point. I agree. We'll grade that area as liberal, and that changes the overall grade. Stuff like that. So, go over this. And then also, one of the coolest features of our website, actually both Both of our websites do show this, show our other prototype from our other volunteer. Long shout out. If you want to just get a quick snapshot of what your state looks like overall, take a look. We got 3 progressives, 4 liberals, a centrist, 2 conservatives, and 4 nationalists. All right, take a quick look, and if you refresh, you can see how the entire country is listed out here. Incredible. So, really, really, really thankful to all of our volunteers for where we are right now. I just saw a big piece of news drop, so I'm going to call that out. The Kansas Republicans have dropped their push to enter the nation's widening redistricting. So, that means that the Kansas GOP don't have the votes, and they are not going to be able to force redistricting. It was going to be really... This is one of those things, again, where it's like the national media taking it over, and it's like, Kansas has a Democratic governor. And I know that she's not, like, the furthest left, as we can... Let's just, take advantage of the resources we have at our disposal here. You got Laura Kelly, governor, centrist. But she's not gonna go for that. She's a very common sense person. She's been begging them to pass Medicaid expansion for years, and they won't do it. And Sharice Davids, she might be running for senator in Kansas. It would be against Moran, because Roger Marshall just won his re-election. So she was going to run in large part because her seat was going to be disappeared. And so I don't know if that means that she's still going to run. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, as we see the official call here still has not been made for Hashmi. As of right now, we'll have to wait and see if David still wants to run. I don't think she has a great shot, but I think if that seat can, if we can keep that House seat blue and have a chance at a Senate seat with an established, long-time, elected official there, I think it would be beneficial for everyone. Also, some more news on that Georgia election. The Democrats flipped 2 Public Service Commission seats, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but these are the first victories on the Public Service Commission in 25 years. Now that's Joe-mentum right there. Too dark, too Brandon. Never forget. I'm surprised this hasn't been called yet. Alright, what do we still have outstanding? Fairfax County. They gotta pick this stuff up. I think that this I'm not gonna do it. I am not gonna call it. Oh my lord. It's time to flip over to some big elections, boys. It's time. I also want to get the Maine. Alright, we're gonna kill the... I want Maine up just to see. Abigail Spanberger is 1. Hashmi is 1. Jay Jones can stay up there. Time to look at New Jersey. Mikey Sherrill, current Congresswoman, New Jersey 11. In Congress, based on the scope of what a congressperson can do, she's graded as a centrist. But once she announced her candidacy for governor, once she won the primary, we redid the grading with the new policy platform put forward as a governor rather than as a House representative, and with the different scope that a House representative and a governor have, she actually gets regraded as a liberal because as a House rep, she didn't advocate for, Medicare for all, public options, stuff like that, which pulls her down to centrist alongside a ton of other aspects. But as a governor, you can't do it even if you wanted to, really. You have to go through so much state legislature if you want to get a program like that going that doesn't exist anywhere in the country. You would have to get so much funding, which would mean massive adjustments to your tax code, and that's not something she's interested in. But because of her very progressive civil rights stance, because of her unbelievingly, shockingly progressive education stances for universal pre-K, universal school lunches, stuff like that brought her up to a liberal grade. And when I say up, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying up as in good or down as in bad. I simply up as in from the center up towards one of the edges in progressive. As we see, only 9% exit polls from CNN on Jay Jones' texts, the text that we mentioned earlier where he said he wanted to kill his Republican colleagues. In terms of Mayer's voters, 88% of them called them disqualifying, but 27% of Mayer's voters, which again, these percentages, you can't, math is really not that hard. 27% of Mayer's voters said they hadn't heard enough. 66% of Jay Jones voters said they hadn't heard enough to make a decision. That's what I mean when I talk about things not sticking. You know, if it doesn't get talked about long enough, then people just aren't gonna. They just flat out are not going to hear about it, and they are not going to. They're just not going to take it into consideration if they go out to vote. So I don't think that we're going to see that big of an impact on it. I think the biggest impact here is simply because Myers is an incumbent and Jay Jones never really did anything to ingratiate himself to Hashmi or to Spamberger as, Jesus, is this going to be a wider margin? No. It just looks crazy here. Yep. Jay Jones still in the lead with the most votes to come from Richmond, Norfolk, and Fairfax. So looking good for Jay Jones. We didn't do grades on lieutenant governors and for attorney generals. I would love to get to a point where we could do grades on attorney generals, but with our criteria being the way it is, there's so much stuff. You know, attorney general really has no control over things like economic policy, have some control over business and labor in terms of bringing forth suits that are impacting those areas. Same thing with education. Same things with healthcare. If there's a provider that's taking advantage of their clients, they can get involved there. Environment, they can get involved there. And then in terms of civil rights, they can get involved. Voting rights, they can get involved. Immigration and foreign affairs, a little bit. Public safety, kind of, yeah. But you see what I mean. And then lieutenant governor, it was difficult just because, you know, like I said, the scope of the job is really... It's at the behest of the governor what they want to have you do. If you couldn't tell, if you just couldn't tell. And also if you couldn't tell from the banner and from the very blown out photo from our 60s run and our 08 championship, and also now you have the giant mug to let you know. And also the sketch of every single Boston building my grandfather worked on in his career. And also the Healy Driscoll bag, the free bag I got from the convention this year. As we're seeing good things out of Maine. This is one of those things where you know, I try and be very, very, very how to have a very, 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 like, nonpartisan or unbiased. I'm just giving you the policy beliefs, and if it really is something super, like, someone's being super disingenuous or non-factual, then I might come in and be like, yeah, this is just a blatant lie. When it comes to some of these questions, though, I mean, these main questions are as easy as they come. Ballot measure would require voters to show photo identification, require absentee voters to submit a written application before each election, and limit the number of ballot drop boxes to 1 per municipality. Look at how many goddamn municipalities there are. Like, this is just insanity. And also, we have to show identification here in Massachusetts, and I can't tell you one election where I've been like, this is unbelievably annoying. Like, this is just not important. You have to show your license to get registered to vote. The amount of voter fraud that has occurred over the past 4 years, despite constantly being in the news, is so unbelievably minuscule that every single instance of it has been caught and someone has been prosecuted for it. Like, it's just not necessary. It only serves to make it more difficult to vote. So stuff like voter ID laws, and I'll have the conversation on voter ID, because like I said, we do it here in Massachusetts, and it's annoying, and I haven't seen with my own eyes it hurt someone or make them less likely to vote, as Decision Desk has already called it for Mikey Sherrill. This was I'm going to finish this point and then we'll jump over there. But the limiting the number of ballot boxes, this is unacceptable. This is pure voter manipulation, making it as difficult to vote as possible. I know that a lot of these municipalities look very close together, and it's like, oh, well, look, I mean, you got all these ones, they're just kind of all little next to each other, but, I mean, it's a limit of one per municipality. How many of these municipalities are going to say, we don't need one, the town next door's got one. The town next door's got one, we don't have to get one. And then you have to drive from here to go vote. And again, to some people that's not going to sound like an inconvenience, but for a lot of people, it's going to make them say, I don't really want to do that. And then they're not gonna. That's the biggest type of voter suppression there is getting people just being like, it's too inconvenient, I don't really want to do it. It's not even that big of a deal, right? Like, I don't really have to vote, right? And that's how you get it. So, hopeful that this passes. This other one is very important. It's Maine, so it's probably not going to pass, but essentially saying that law enforcement officers, relatives, or household members can ask the court to issue an extreme risk protection order that temporarily prohibits a person from possessing firearms or other dangerous weapons. People may remember it was in 2023 or 2024 in... Oh, I'm not going to be able to remember, and there's so many townships, dude. Wherever Jared Golden, wherever Jared Golden is the representative of, I believe it is North, his home city, there was a mass shooting that occurred there with a assault weapon that he voted against banning in Congress. And that is a type of cowardice that I can't even begin to understand. But this is a measure that is like the first baby step in common sense gun control. And the fact that it's like, if it had just said law enforcement officers, like a cop could look at someone and say, this person, if they had a gun, would cause massive amounts of harm, they shouldn't have one. You're still gonna see people here voting no. In Maine, it's a very, very big issue for them. As we move away from the Virginia race, do want to say this is the right guy, right? Okay, thank God. A great clip from MSNBC from a Virginia voter. And I quote, Spanberger, she's out there doing what she's supposed to do. That other lady, she needs to go somewhere and sit down. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Atlanta, Andre Dickens wins another term. Done quite a good job in Atlanta as Mikey Sherrill. It has been called by Decision Desk. This was an election that for weeks people were saying it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck, guys. This is going to be the election to watch. I mean, this one's going to be, down to the wire. We're going to have to wait all night to see who's going to win this. Jack might even have a chance in this one, and then you come out and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. It's remember when I said I wasn't comfortable when it was under 10% to call it? This is almost 30% with a fifth of the votes in. And all the votes to still come out. She's winning Burlington, Atlantic. She's not going to win Ocean. She's crushing in Newark and Essex. I'm interested to see Sussex. Sussex is usually a good bellwether for the state. Morris hasn't come in yet. But this, I mean, like I said, Decision Desk already called it, and they do go a little early, but this is pretty pretty big. All right. This is a big election to get to. Let me just make sure that nothing crazy. It's 1%, 0%. J is still nowhere. Okay, this is a big race. Big thing to talk about here is the fact that this seat has been vacant since March. So what is that? 7 months? 8 months? The seat has been vacant. It was previously held by a woman who had represented the place forever. She ran for mayor of Houston and passed away. And then the mayor of Houston said, hey, I'll run for this House seat. But he didn't run in the special because the daughter of the previous House rep who passed said that she was going to run for the special, run out her mother's term. And then the general, Sylvester Turner, former mayor of Houston, ran for it, won it. He died a couple months after he was inaugurated. So now there's a special election. But because of the very, very slim margin in the House of Representatives currently, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas decided that he was going to, despite there being no deadline, he could do it tomorrow if he'd like. Actually, there might be a minimum. But could have done it. It happened, like I said, Sylvester passed in March, so we could have done it over the summer. Could have done it during the some other states' primaries. Decided to wait all the way till Election Day to preserve that majority, that slim majority, as long as possible. I graded out these top 3 candidates because of the likelihood of a runoff and because of the polling. The polling for this election has been insane. First of all, Carmen Montiel, her biggest achievement is that she did win Miss Venezuela a long time ago, so congratulations. This hasn't been called, although I'm seeing the decision desk calling it over and over again. And also important to note, yes, this George Foreman is son of George Foreman, one of the many sons of George Foreman, all of which are named George Foreman. So this is a race that's been extremely odd, and one of the big reasons this race was odd was because of the polling. Menifee got a poll done. You see some of these internal polls get done where it's like a strict internal, we're polling, our campaign is polling, and it's mostly for like advertising and fundraising to show like, oh, we're really close, we're right there, it's neck and neck, we need your money. Or to show like, dude, we're so far ahead, like, let's keep this rolling, let's keep this momentum. So Menifee had a poll made that went public that showed him winning and another one of these 2 Democrats winning. Amanda had a poll conducted that showed her winning and one of these other 2. And Yolanda had a poll running that showed her winning and one of these other 2. No, actually, one of them had a poll that showed them and the Republican neck and neck, which is, use your eyes right now and tell me that this woman had a chance to win this election ever, to get into the runoff ever. So one of these polls was just flat out made for like fundraising purposes. Christian Menifee is currently the county attorney for Harris County, which is Houston, and he was endorsed by pretty much every Texas elected official, including people like Colin Allred, who are running for Senate, ran for Senate last term. James Tellerico, who's running for Senate this term, has gone viral many, many times. Jasmine Crockett endorsed him, so he was the front runner. He is graded as progressive. Amanda Edwards, she's kind of landing in like perennial candidate status right now. And for those who don't know, a perennial candidate is someone who runs for office every single time there's an election. And she's run for, she used to be a city councilor in Houston, and then she ran for a House seat. She ran for Senate. She was going to run for mayor of Houston, but decided to run for the same House seat that Sylvester Turner ran for and won. And now she is once again running for this House seat. And also, by the way, when we talk about gerrymandering, this is what gerrymandering is. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Looks like it looks like an anatomical drawing of like the intestinal like what is this? Anyway, the big two are Christian Menefee, Amanda Edwards. Her perennial status has a lot of name recognition. Yolanda Jones, she's also graded as a progressive, by the way. Yolanda Jones graded as a liberal, not as much because of any center or like massive liberal leaning views, but it had a ton to do with she just didn't have much policy out there. And a lot of her policy positions were like, hey, as a state representative, which she currently is still a state representative in Texas, I did this, and I voted for this bill, and I voted for this bill. And it's like, that's awesome. You didn't write them. You didn't co-sponsor them. You just voted the right way for them. That's still good, but I'd like to know how you're going to translate that to the House of Representatives. Do I think she's a bad candidate? No. And I think that's another good thing that PoliGrade we want to do is, you know, when you look at these grades and you know, can I do multiple? No. And see, that's why it's a good thing to look at these things, figure out what more we can grow and what more we can do. If you're like, say you're a liberal and you don't like voting for centrists. All right, well, let's say that we see a massive redistricting push and you've got Henry Kuehler, Jasmine Crockett, Sylvia Garcia, and Al Green. This isn't accurate to where their districts are. I'm just throwing things together. Let's say they all go in the same thing. And you look and you say, all right, I like Jasmine Crockett's policy, and I think she's a good politician. She gets good media coverage. She's very well spoken. Al Green is, you know, up there with his cane interrupting speeches. He's very, very animated for his age, but, you know, maybe, you know, you're not as supportive. Think the lack of ability has gone there, and that's where I'll say there's a difference between just blatant ageism and pointing out someone's decrease in ability in, you know, connection with their age. Those are two different things. Then you get to the centrist, or what was the other one? Sylvia Garcia. Yeah, maybe you're just ageist, you don't like her. And then you get to the centrist. Henry Kuehler is a terrible, terrible person who's should have been kicked out by now because he committed many, many crimes in regards to getting money sent to him illegally. Bad guy. Bad guy. So, if you were to look at your options, you get 1, 2, 3 options that all fit your political beliefs. That doesn't mean the one you pick is good and the other two are bad. You just pick whichever one you like the most. You believe in you pick the candidate who share the most beliefs that you do. That's always how it's been. That's always how it should be. Anyone saying otherwise is misconstruing for who knows what reason. Now, I brought us back here to Jay Jones because we do have our first decision from Decision Desk that project Jay Jones to win. I want to take a look at this myself. It's only at 55%. But again, you look at ballots yet to be cast. The largest amount is coming out of a place that he's still up over 10% in. The rurals are all just about done, except for Montgomery, which he's still getting a fair amount of votes in. Then you look at Norfolk, and Myers is picking up steam here. Mostly, I'm going to assume, due to that incumbent boost. God, I hate the Virginia map so much. I just want to see what these cities are voting like, man. What city's in there? What's in there? Charlottesville. He's doing all right. But you see all these, you know, Fairfax County is up very much. And it's not only is he up very much, but we still have about 40% of the vote, and he's almost 100,000 up on him. So that's going to be a ton of votes. That's what's going to get him over the finish line with 56% being counted. Jeez Louise. There's also a lot of information coming through about some of these House districts. Also a lot of information. I got to get back over here. Oh my God. Cape May is generally a Republican stronghold, and he is only up by, barely 1%. That sucks. Not sucks in like I'm a huge, the Jacks gotta, we gotta share, we gotta come together and count on one another. But that's awful. Still get Ocean, which is nice. But I mean, you've got it. Salem's gotta, we gotta get some red in here. Not again. I feel bad. This will be his third gubernatorial loss in a row. And this is what I tried to say to some people in discussions about, polling says this, and he's got the Trump endorsement this time, and he's moved a bit towards the center of the right, graded as a conservative, and it's like, dude, you're not in New Jersey. I've worked so many local elections, and it's always like mind-blowing the way people from outside of voter spheres talk about voters, and then people who talk to voters constantly hear things. And if you talk to a voter face to face, like if you're door knocking or phone banking, not phone banking as much, but like door knocking, going to events, stuff like that, people are very engaged when they see you making the effort. If you're not making the effort, they do not care. And they also do not get updated. So if you asked a Republican in Jersey if they're going to get out to an off-year election in a state like Jersey where Trump has not been talking about, not been, I think he endorsed Jack and then kind of bailed on the issue. If you come up to someone and say, "Hey, you gonna run for the are you gonna vote this year for Jack? You got endorsed by Trump." They're gonna go, "I didn't know he got endorsed by Trump. Why would Trump endorse a guy who lost 2 elections in a row?" That's what they're gonna remember. Oh, is that the guy that lost the last 2 years in a row? They're not gonna vote for the guy. Oh, people are pissed. People are pissed on the right about Jay Jones winning after saying that he wants to shoot people. I mean, I get some of that frustration. But then when you say Republicans need to elect right-wingers who want Dems and immigrants shot and killed, you've already got a lot of that. You've already got a ton of that. I don't think you need any more. Yeah, someone else said, the guy who said that post on Twitter's name is Roni, and someone else said, "Roni, I got news for you, bud. You already got a lot of that." Let's take a look. This is uplifting. I know it's only 3%, but Maine... It's hard to get these numbers in from around here. It's really, really difficult to get this information. Obviously, we have nothing out of... I can't even tell. Wait. AP report estimated uncounted votes available after poll close. But the polls did close. The polls closed, bro. Pittsburgh mayor, is it? Damn, not a flip. Congratulations, Corey O'Connor, the next mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the Steelers, he's got to do something about the Steelers fan base. They had a funeral for the defense, and the defense had the best showing they've had all year. That's embarrassing. I'm really, side note, guys, I'm really happy I fixed this music situation. This music, I found a playlist of just oldie jazz music to just sit in the background so I don't have this, deafening silence behind me when I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is I want to say. And I'm glad I figured out this playlist, because at first it just wasn't working and it just wouldn't play. But now we've got it. Some nice jazz. It's very nice. And I think we are, 8:30, so still got a ways until we get to New York. Are they counting this already? What the hell is going on? I know these are both bad. This amendment would prohibit people who are not U.S. citizens from voting. That's redundant. In 1992, that was passed as a federal law. If you are not a U.S. citizen, you cannot vote in the elections. So, this is irrelevant. And also, someone who's working on PoliGrade is helping us out greatly. He already couldn't vote here. So also redundancy in the law, and I know that people are going to say that this is too hypothetical, but redundancy in law can be a very bad thing. It's often a bad thing for bad people abuse it, and that's why it's bad. So it's kind of like double, where it's like a bad person puts it forward, and then a bad person abuses the fact that there's redundancy, even though the bad person supported that redundancy. So, for instance, California had something vetoed a couple years ago that would ban the caste system, which is a commonly used, not derogatory is not the right terminology, discriminatory. There we go. Discriminatory system in Indian culture about, if you're born into this profession, that's the profession you belong in, and it has enormous cultural and societal viewpoints on certain levels in the caste system. And so there was a push in California to ban discrimination based on the caste system, and Governor Newsom vetoed it. And he vetoed it, and when he did, he wasn't like, I'm not vetoing this because I'm for discrimination based on the caste system. I'm vetoing this because it's already illegal in the state of California under our anti-discrimination laws. And if we have 2 laws for the caste system for anti-discrimination, that means we need 2 laws on every single type of discrimination. Because what if someone comes along and says, hey, I want to discriminate against gay people because you only have 1 law saying I can't do that, but you have 2 for the caste system. So I think I've got a chance at fighting and winning this. Obviously they don't, and they're a bad person for trying or even thinking that, and that's why I say this is kind of a unlikely hypothetical, but it all just boils back down to you do not want redundancy in law. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're not for the thing you're vetoing, it just means you don't want redundancy in law. So something like this, prohibiting people who are not U.S. citizens, stupid and meaningless. This one would establish a right for parents to make decisions regarding their child's upbringing and care. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, about what? About medicine? Do they have to perform procedures? I mean, if under the age of, I would assume 18, if it's Texas, under the age of 18, a parent needs to consent on all medical procedures, all medical treatments. So already the case. What does upbringing mean? Are only parents going to be allowed? If I'm a parent in Texas, can I sue a school district for having a teacher that teaches my kid who's not a parent and say, I want control, I want to pick my students' teachers? Like, what does this mean? That's dumb. I apologize for not having any better dialogue on the issue other than that's dumb. But that's dumb. Mikey Sherrill whooping, like I said, Warren, the closer you get to northern Pennsylvania, the better you're going to see Jack do. But this is bad. Alright. Coming from Taniel on X, what we know so far at 8:30 p.m. Dems flip Virginia governor and Virginia lieutenant governor. Also means Democrats take a Virginia trifecta. Democrats are in good shape in New Jersey governors. Dem appear to flip 2 statewide offices in Georgia. J.D. Vance's half-brother loses in Cincy. Last GOPer in Orlando council is gone, and Pennsylvania Democrat justice up big so far. We also can see where we at. Still close, but as you can see, like I keep saying, only places we're still looking for votes. You're not going to get a lot of votes here. You're not getting a lot of votes in Campbell. Are we getting any? A decent amount in Campbell. But it's still Norfolk, it's still Richmond, and it is still Fairfax. Oh, and people are putting out, there's a polling company called Atlas. For those of you watching the stream right now and going, damn, Jack, this looks like garbage. You worked in TV for 3 years. How could you put out such a bad-looking product? I know. I'm sorry. But I was looking at a lot of polling data the past couple days, and it got me sick. And it totally had nothing to do with a family member of mine having a stomach bug that they gave to me. It had to do with looking at polling data from places such as Atlas. Atlas had... When was this poll put out? This was put out end of October, a couple days ago. 5 days ago, Atlas put out a poll that had Mikey Sherrill 50.2, Jack Citarelli 49.3, within the margin of error. Does this look like within the margin of error to you? Does this look like we should take into account the margin of error with 30% of the vote in, and all of the votes to come being from that'll be a kind of mix. I mean, she's gonna win. Don't get me wrong, she's gonna win. I'm just looking at where the votes are still yet to come from. Middlesex will be kind of mixed. Still a lot from Newark that are gonna come in. Bergen is gonna be big. I mean, the fact that she's doing so well here is crazy. Where is Oh, that's what I want to see, the vote shift. Why? I just wanted to say, you got all these little pockets here, and you don't have nothing for me. I don't understand. Why am I made to look like such a buffoon? I was just talking about being sick. Yeah, Atlas polling, I think they were at like A, which is absurd, because 2024 they were terrible, 2023 they were terrible. They have to get demoted in terms of their ranking. And then, whoop. Hey, we're actually getting some results. Nope, cannot use township. So it does look like some of these smaller townships are splitting a bit, but for the most part, what are we getting out of Bangor? Is Bangor just in? Oh, Jesus. Got nothing out of there yet. I can't... Up here. Madawaska. Doing well. Lubbock. Franklin, Lemoyne. It's got Old Town in here. Some of the Stockton Springs. Is that called Prospect? Prospect, Maine. That's neat. Yeah. So we're seeing that. Pleasantly surprised and happy to see some common sense gun control stuff passing, because like I said, this is like baby steps gun control. This is like the Safer Communities Act, which passed the House of Representatives and the Senate, got passed bipartisan. It pretty much closed 2 loopholes. One of them is called the boyfriend what was it called? Not the Boyfriend Act. It's like the boyfriend loophole or something like that. Essentially, having someone purchase a gun, transfer it to a loved one, but not a relative, someone who you're in a relationship with. And then there was a ghost gun portion of it as well. And those 2 minor loopholes get closed, and mass shootings go down 17%. Almost 1 in 5 mass shootings is stopped by closing 2 of the most minuscule loopholes we could possibly go after. So imagine what would happen if we had even more common sense gun control. Even something like this for a state like Maine is a huge step. You know, having a law enforcement officer be able to say, hey, this person is clearly mentally unwell and they should not have access to firearms. That's big. So I'm happy to see the people of Maine showing up. They're going to have to be showing up a lot more recently, or in the future. Got a big Senate race coming up there next year. And it has a lot to do with Jay Jones, even though it's a bit different. I see the comments made by Graham Plattner, who's progressive grade, by the way. And, you know, he keeps characterizing it as someone, he's being attacked and he is being, like, miscategorized, and he's calling out names that people might know. He's just, like, whenever you see a candidate doing something like that, like, the only names he's mentioning are Chuck Schumer, because that's a guy who's in the news during the shutdown. And then if he's not saying someone specific, he's saying, like, the establishment, the party, the DNC. Like, he's not actually talking about anyone in particular unless they're newsworthy, because that's not what's happening. His own statements are being unearthed, statements he has tried to delete, and he is now being held accountable for it. And if it were just... Also, all of the Maine elected officials and greater New England elected officials are telling him to stay in the race. And he's saying, everyone's telling me to drop out for the good of the... It's like, no, actually, everyone... The only person who's told you to drop out is one of the other people running for the election for Senate. So everyone else is telling you to keep running. Most of them are like, yeah, what he said was awful, and what he's done and lied about is awful. But it's not up to us to decide who is the nominee. It's up to the voters of Maine, and that's not the message that Graham is putting out there. And like I said, it's not about other politicians no longer supporting him. It's about his campaign manager quit, his financial director quit, his communications director quit. He said 4 senior staff members quit, and openly be like, this is not the person I want to hitch my wagon to. So it's not, it ain't Schumer. Yeah, I said Warren's gonna come in red, but that, oh my God, barely 3 points. Yeah, we're going to call it PoliGrade, calling it 30%. Mikey Sherrill, Democratic governor of New Jersey. Also first woman to govern the state of New Jersey. Big ups, Mikey. Great job. Her campaign started so hot. She must have had really, really good internals, because her campaign started off, like, red hot. And it was like, oh, she's going to trounce this guy. And then she just disappeared. And it was all local stuff, all local rallies, all local operations, door knocking, no national anything. And like I said, she must have had some really damn good internals that told her, like, hey, you've got this race. You just have to keep it in people's minds. So this is another thing I hate about politics that has nothing to do with media or anything. It has everything to do with just, like, the general the way people talk about it. Is you've had so many people trashing her because she got quiet towards the end of the election. And at the same time, like, oh, my entire interface just went away. Cool, we're back. At the same time, all the people who trashed her and said, oh, she's a terrible candidate, the people who were making stuff up about, like, oh, Democratic senior officials reportedly terrified at Mikey Sherrill's poor campaigning, and they're planning on going there and blah, 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 and doing this. And obviously none of that ever happened. There was never any sort of, like, politicians with no affiliation to New Jersey flying out there. No Democratic Governors Association rendezvous to Jersey. None of these things ever really happened. And then she comes out and smashes him. You think any of these randos on social media are going to come out and say, oh, hand up, my mistake, yep, I got bad information? Or any of these people who are going to be like, yeah, I straight up lied, I was just trying to get some attention, and yeah, I got made to look like a fool? No, of course not. Because they don't care. They don't care about informing anyone of anything. They care about getting clicks, and I think that's disgusting. And with 52% of the vote, does look like we're heading to a runoff. I don't see an avenue for, if we double everyone, 24 to 18 is not going to get you 50%. So pretty fair to say, I'm so sad Foreman didn't get 350. That's probably all his brothers. Couldn't get a single vote from outside your family, dude? Come on, man. Isaiah Martin I hope he runs for something a little bit more realistic. Why can't I? Oh my god, it's another thing I don't like about AP. I can't look up. Once that little like gray bar goes past someone, you can't look them up. Isaiah Martin just kind of got clobbered because he didn't have the what? He got clobbered because he didn't have the history that other people had. This has to just be the name of another person. Otherwise, this would be ridiculous. I'm currently looking at it's probably just the fact that Google AI is trash product. Yeah. But it said Isaiah Martin was going to be running for Pennsylvania House seat, and I was like, that doesn't sound true. But Isaiah Martin seems to be someone who should stick around, but he lent into a lot of rhetoric that if you like are chronically online and if all you know is like all of your political knowledge comes from like Twitter, he would have sounded like a great candidate, or TikTok. He would have had great sound bites. He would have had great video clips and stuff, but very little actual substantive like political knowledge of how things actually go. So like I said, if you're on TikTok and you see a guy say, you know, Republicans and Donald Trump just actively did this bad thing, but it's Democrats' fault actually for not stopping them, that's going to get you a ton of TikTok views, and it's going to generate a ton of left-wing people in your comments that are loving you. But then when it comes time to vote, this is what happens. This is what happens every time without fail. So once you start getting some actual institutional, like, you can not only tell people an interesting and like attention-grabbing story, but you can also prove to them that you're capable of representing a district of over 700,000 people in one of the countries, if not, I think Houston's the biggest city in the country in a metric. I never remember which one it is exactly, but Houston's a massive city. So you really have to prove to people that you know what you're doing to win, like to run a district like this. I'm sorry, I just got like stun locked because there was another polling place that I wish I knew off the top of my head, but when I see garbage polls, I usually just try and get rid of them as soon as possible. There were polls earlier that showed that Mikey Sherrill she had absolutely minuscule approval ratings amongst black voters, and as of right now, she is winning over 90% of the black vote. Another reason that polls are garbage. And this is a good moment while we are waiting. We have 7 minutes until the New York City mayor's race kicks off. And also, you know what I'll do right now? We're gonna have our first early call of the night. I'm calling that yes will win on Prop 50 because every single aspect of it has been unbelievably positive, and I haven't seen a single report anywhere that shows that it's not doing well and that it's polling poorly, and every strategy has been attempted to make it look bad, and every single one has failed. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this is gonna pass, and I'm not gonna stay up till 11 to watch it. But I can't. They gotta call this already, dude. They called Jay. Oh no, he's pulling ahead too. He's up to 2.5% now. Yeah. A big Virginia flip. Kerry Coyner in House District 75 lost their re-election. They are Republican, so it's a flip from red to blue. And this is notable because Kerry Coyner is the person who leaked Jay Jones' texts about shooting Republican colleagues. So she lost her election, and he is going to win his. That's funny. Don't worry like that. All of these New York Jets players are getting traded on the same day Zoran Mamdani is going to become mayor of New York City. I see what's going on, and it's disgusting. Get him out of there. That's really true. That's Quinton Williams and Sauce Gardner, we're going to have to pay a lot of extra money. Well, I guess they live in Jersey, so it doesn't matter. What did Cheryl say about? Let's pull up my grading sheet. I'll give you, you know what? I showed you guys PoliGrade. Let me show you a little bit inside the mind of a mind freak like myself. Let's take a look here. This is one of the ways that I break down, as you can see here at the bottom. We've got all the candidates. This is one of the ways we evaluate and grade over here. Over here at PoliGrade, we take great pride in our in-depth grades. That's how you can tell that at some point I stopped writing stuff down in the sheet and start writing it down on paper. Because I was like, this, I can so much quicker do this if I just do it on paper than having to type it all in. But, in terms of economic policy, very centrist when it comes to that. Lowering property and income taxes through credits, not through changing rates, but through credits which are applied after the fact. Against the New York congestion pricing, but that's pretty much just because it hurts people from New Jersey. But you know, nothing about increasing upper bracket tax rates or corporate taxes. So, you know, theoretically, Sauce would have been chill. And I think that, you know, Sauce, Quinton, they're off. You know, Quinton's now in Dallas. He ain't gonna pay nothing. Sauce is in Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure that Indianapolis gives their rich people more taxes. I think they take it out of the Indianapolis city budget and give it to straight to rich people. So he'll be fine there. This is bad. 600, Jesus Christ. This is bad. Alright, we got 13 in. This looks pretty safe. This is completely just, like, dead. They stopped it at 52 minutes? That's crazy. We'll return to these. We'll return to these. That's done. That's done. That's done. What else do we got? Everything we can take a peek at while we wait? These are all left-leaning Supreme Court members, by the way. Other than that, Sheffield, Solomon. I don't know anything about these two people. I don't live in Michigan. But I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys these two in case there's someone out there who's been like, someone's got to show me what the Jersey City mayor's looking like. But this is what most people are going to be here for. This is one of the fun ones. Even though, like I just said about Jersey City, I'm not from New York. I still going to be interested because it's been national news, and I do want to say, again, the media hijacks so many things for their own personal gain, and I've seen so many dumb articles about, like, what does Zoran winning the primary say about Dems across the country? It's like nothing. It says absolutely nothing, because New York City voters are not the same as New Jersey voters, who aren't the same as Virginia voters, because Virginia overwhelmingly voted for a centrist candidate. New Jersey has overwhelmingly voted for a liberal candidate who's positioned herself as a centrist her entire career. And New York City is going to vote for a charismatic, non-sexual predator in Zoran Mamdani. So, it doesn't say anything. because every city is different, and every state is different, and every demographic is different. And this is also a good time to mention as we wait this final minute out, as it does tick over to 9 p.m. EST, that one of the difficult things talking about politics, campaigning especially, is you use very blunt and straightforward language to talk about, oh my god, it's so close here too, to talk about voter demographics. For instance, mentioned earlier that Jack was way up with black voters, but it turns out that Mikey ended up winning almost all black voters. A lot of people hear that and they're like, oof, Jesus, really talking like this? Because you're talking about the, women's vote, male vote, gay vote, black vote, Hispanic vote, just use the terminology right out there. And a lot of times it's just for clear and concise communications, because you do have a lot of moving parts in a campaign. But also it's like, it's what it is. We're polling these people. We're looking at the voting percentage from these groups. And so you've got to, you don't really want to take that moment, especially if you're now, I can see where issues can come up if you're like a candidate who's running on a very, very, very anti-civil rights platform and using those terms. I can see how people can get very up in arms. But, a candidate like Abigail Spanberger, who, like I said, her most progressive policy beliefs were in civil rights, where she went in depth about how she would protect each and every marginalized community within Virginia. So that's not something where you should be really worried about the language there, because you know that she's going to have your best interest in mind. She's just trying to get elected so that she can do so, whereas her opponent does not have your best interest in mind. So that's an important thing to know. And we have votes. It is Cuomo. I saw a poll today that had I think it might have just been like they messed up the tweet, but it had Sliwa at like 40%, Mamdani at around 50, and then Cuomo at like 9. And I was like, this is dumb. Staten. Well, we got Cuomo. Okay, so Staten. Okay, here's the breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the breakdown. Staten Island's going to go for Cuomo. It's going for Sliwa second. Staten Island's weird and bad. Just pretend like it doesn't exist. That goes for all facets of life. Brooklyn, Manhattan, Bronx, all going to go Mamdani. Queens is going to be where you really see how it's going to shake out. Staten Island's already almost done. So we got 36% of the vote, and this is how it's shaking out. I mean, the only thing that we knew for sure about this election was that Sliwa didn't have a chance. It's the only thing we knew for sure. But while the general consensus believed that Mamdani was going to win, the question was how close. The biggest question on people's minds was, is he going to get over 50% of the vote? I think at this point, that's probably really annoying to hear. He can get 50. This is the only thing that scares me, but he's close enough to 50 that I think that 39 isn't going to drag him down elsewhere. This might drag him down a little bit, but not much. And Sliwa's doing well in Queens, well in Staten Island. And I think I already said this. Oh no, I don't actually think I did give you the grades. Mamdani, guess. Progressive, obviously. Cuomo, I was stunned how far to the center Cuomo has sprinted throughout the course of this campaign, because he was quite liberal as governor, but there are certain things in his platform that I was like, I can't believe he's moved so far to the center, and solely in an attempt to court votes from the right and from the MAGA crowd. Kind of unbelievable. Curtis Sliwa gets a moderate. As a Republican who is pro-choice, pro-gun control, pro-LGBTQ. He had another couple like very liberal-leaning policy beliefs in there. Anti-MAGA was another big thing. So it wasn't shocking to see him not do well with his own party, because that is the party. I love that write-ins are beating. Eric Adams, who dropped out too late to get his name off the ballot. So that's just incredible. And Decision Desk has called it Zohran Mamdani is the New York City mayor. It's important to remember Eric Adams, current mayor, was going to be investigated by the Department of Justice, the Federal Department of Justice, for receiving funds from Turkey and other corruption crimes with lots of evidence. It was going forward, and then the Trump DOJ shut it down in hopes of getting him either into the cabinet or to get him to drop out to prevent this man from winning. And it's not looking like it's gonna work. I think he's probably gonna end up in jail anyway. 50+%. All right, let's take a look at some of the stuff we don't know for sure yet. These Texas ones. Ugh. Maine's got to get there. Dude, just count the votes, dude. It's been an hour. Queen of Katwe star Zohran Mamdani is projected to have won the election to become mayor of New York City. I also want to mention, a lot of people were saying, like, about Zohran, like, we're going to see the rise of young candidates because of Zohran. And I was like, well, Zohran isn't winning because he's young. He's winning because he's energetic, he's likable, he has good beliefs. You can tell that he wants what's best for the people of New York City. And he's very entertaining. I can't tell you how many interviews I've seen of people who are like, I don't believe a word he says, and I hate all his policies, but I watch everything he does. I think he's a nice guy. And it's like, that's not how politics work today. Like Trump supporters being like, I voted for Trump, and I'm going to vote for Mamdani. And it's like, what? But he's a likable guy. And I think people, again, trying to extrapolate that to other places. And it's like, I know a lot of Gen Z people running for office. And it's not enough to just be young. You have to be energetic. You have to prove that you know what you're doing. You do have to leverage that connectability you have as a younger person. And you can't, like, I can't tell you how many people my age I've seen run for some local board and just be like, hello, my name is Jack, and I'm running for planning board, and there's just, you know, I've people like me usually don't run for these things, and I just think it would be a great opportunity for me to, you know, learn and become a bigger part of the community. And it's like, no one wants to elect you to learn. Get a job. I'm sounding like someone right-wing right now. Get a job. But yeah, that's a big thing about Zohran. Is just he is a unique type of politician, and he ran an incredible campaign. Incredible. All right, but what we're all really here for, who won in Buffalo? No one. Is it closed later? That's closed. Okay, where's my boy Eric at? Let's go. Jim Waldron. He tried to get some press towards the end there, but it didn't end up working out for him much. I'm trying to think, do we have anything else to... Once... What do we have? 36? Yeah, once we get up over 50, I'll call it, and then we'll call it. And I guess we could do a little bit more of a tour. Oh my god, they still haven't. I'm looking at this. It's on the screen. I don't have to explain what I'm looking at. I'm trying to see if anything else has had an increase. It does look like Maine had a bit of an increase in question 1. Question 1 we want no. Question 1 we want yes. They still haven't called Virginia Attorney General, but it's going to be Jones. 76% of the vote. And let me guess, all the votes that have to... Yeah, still Norfolk. Virginia Beach. He's close. He's right there. Yeah, it'd have to be closer to 10. Especially with there still being so much out of Fairfax. That'll make up for it alone. Was there any other big... Oh, yeah, let's take a look at... For any locals that are here, first of all, I want to see Boston election results. This is not going to be what I want at all. No, go away. She's our Woo, Mayor Woo. Is the check-in because her opponent dropped out of the race. I like Julia Meggia. She's my favorite. Not just because she did an interview with me. That was nice, but other than that, you know. This is the person. I was working in Boston, and I ran into Ruth Z's significant other, and mentioned some Massachusetts state rules as we were having conversation, and he was adamant that I was wrong about something because my wife is on the city council. I said, that's not what I was talking about, dude. I wasn't talking about city council. He was adamant. So that was an interesting conversation. That's, you know, politicians are just people too. You know, sometimes they can not know what to talk about. What's going on here? People are trashing on Slowa for only getting 8%. It's a Republican in New York City. What are we talking about? What are we talking about here? I think Cuomo City's gonna move to Florida if he loses. So that'll be sick. I wanted to look at. That's what I want to look at. You guys are getting spoiled with your national election coverage. We gotta see some real election coverage. Go away. I don't know who that is, but it's not. I don't think it's the person that I thought. Petty King. Wow. This is shocking. Caloria is off, which is big. I can't believe Mitra won. I really didn't think he had a shot. Lanier's losing stinks. Bellata's great. These two are both assholes. Ojeda winning. I can't believe Rivera won. That's insane. Unofficial winners. I mean, I guess Ethel is very far left. So maybe that contributed. I'm gonna have to take a look at that before I hit the sack. Let's see. I mean, this is just absolutely no way to release anything. You're just not giving any of the information. Read more. What's happened? What am I looking at? This is terrible. Where is the 20%? That's not, you know, not terrible for Worcester, but it's still terrible in general. I would love it. I'm gonna check. Nah, yeah, I would love it if it was It's like, oh, how did the views do tonight? It's like, oh, views are doing bad, and then I started looking at Worcester election results, and everyone came flocking all around the country. Yeah, that's all. Wow, lost to former boxer Jose Rivera. That sucks. She was very good, and he does not seem to really care much. Oh, and he beat her pretty handedly too. Wow. And then what else we got? Petty's winning, yeah, that's expected. This is great to see. Keith Linares would have been good, but I think he had a bit of a scattered strategy. Also, whenever you see someone like this who is a former city council person coming back, often seen as an incumbent. Costas was openly Republican, so that hurt him a lot. I really want to see the at-large. Kate Toomey makes sense. Petty and Kate Toomey are constants. Gary Rosen left a couple years ago, is coming back. Christian King, Mo Bergman. But it's saying over on a different one that we're seeing potentially election night reports. It is the 5th. Oh my god, for Christ's sake, I just want to know who the goddamn winners were. Alright. He's gonna crack 50%. My lord. Spanberger's margin, if it holds, is the biggest Dem win in Virginia governor's race in 40 years. Damn. Jay Jones paving the way for Graham Plattner. Yeah. Jay Jones walked so that Plattner could sprint. Continue attacking victims of assault. And despite being a self-proclaimed history buff and everyone in his life saying that he was fully aware his tattoo was a Nazi symbol, had no idea. It's crazy. This is a very... I'm trying to think of anything... I mean, other than just the margins, I don't think too much tonight went unexpected. I mean, I would say the only thing that I was super unexpected about... Oh, I actually do want to see the Colorado questions. I'm pleasantly surprised that Yes on 2 is doing so well in Maine. Oh, it doesn't change at all. This is a great bill. I'm surprised they're doing it on such a low income bracket. Obviously, 300,000 is not low income at all. But in Massachusetts, we are barred from an income tax because John Adams is an ass. And we did the fair share on everyone earning over $1 million. And that has gotten us an extra $2 billion of revenue every year, which we put towards infrastructure and public schools, free school lunches for every child in Massachusetts, and free community college for everyone over the age of 25 without a bachelor's degree. So we've used it very effectively, and we did it over $1 million. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the average income in Colorado is probably lower, so if they did it over people earning over $1 million probably would not get enough revenue to justify it. But you're gonna see big yes out of the central and close to the mountain range, as you're seeing, just because there's fewer people here, but they're gonna benefit from. So Colorado has a big mountain range right here. As you can see, 0% vote, or like 0% counted, but look at how small the uncounted estimate is. There's a big mountain range that goes right here. And this part of Colorado is very red. And then once you get like over here, it's pretty red. But all in the center part is very city, very blue. You get Boulder is in there. You get Denver is in there. Obviously, Fort Collins, as it says. Colorado Springs. So you're going to see a lot of these rural places that have no one making over 300K, but they are very rural. They are very dependent on the information given to them by their politicians. Their politicians often are right-wing, so they're going to get vote no. And then here in this mountain range, funnily enough, you see low totals, but like I said, no one making over 300K is going to be in this very hard to develop area. And then when you get into the cities, you're going to see, a lot of very reasonable conclusions come to about funding this. If you don't, this is one of those things. If you don't make over 500, or if you don't make under 300K, you vote yes. If you make over 300K, I get it. I would say think of the people, who aren't, but I can't make you do it. And with over 50, oh, Ryan, this Ryan gentleman, Sean Ryan, James Gardner. All right, we're at 52%. I don't think he's going to be able to crack 50% himself, but you don't need to crack 50%. How many votes do you need to win an election, guys? More than the other guy. That's all that matters. So, with that being said, and with almost 220 minutes live, I'm going to go out with one more, just not look at my Harvard X, but one more look at our website, one of our prototypes here. Really right now in its minimum viable product state, MVP for you business people, has brief explanations of the 6 grades. These policies are not necessarily must-haves to fit in these grades. Just wanted to give people an understanding of what type of policy would land you in these roles. Basic mission statements, you can understand what we're about. Easy access to our grades page, because that's what a lot of people are coming here to see. You might notice these hyperlinks are here. In the future, we want to be able to redirect people straight to these people's, Wikipedias or their candidate profiles, so you can get more in-depth policy knowledge. Hopefully, towards next year's election cycle, we can even have our own sort of collection of their policy beliefs, so that you don't have to leave the site to do so. A good overview up top of what grades are dominating politics at the highest level as of right now. It is all of the governors, all of the senators, and all of the House representatives, plus some candidates that we talked about tonight, totaling 589 people. A lot of people. And then moving over to our second prototype, because it has built it out a little bit more. If you want to say anything about the product, about the project, about any grades you feel aren't good and you have a reason why, or you just want to know, hey, I want to know why my representative's graded this way. I saw so-and-so on Facebook and I want to know more about it. Send a message. We'll get back to you in a timely manner. You can also take our alignment quiz. It is still being constructed, but as of right now, it pretty much asks on all issues, or not all issues. If I wanted to write a quiz that asked as many policy questions as I could come up with, I could easily bang out 100-question quiz that, really got into the nitty-gritty and told you, really had you ask and answer questions about every single policy that could be affected by any of these public offices. But we're boiling it down to something that's a lot more manageable, the most important policies. And you're going to be asked in non-policy language, so you don't have to study. It's just basic, for instance, the first question. Do you support or oppose, or just in yes or no for now, like I said, prototype, taxing citizens based on what they can afford to contribute? Do you support or oppose that idea? Say yes or no. And so on for all 27 questions. At the end, you'll get your grade. So then you can go over to politicians and say you get graded as a liberal. Bang. I want to know who all the liberal politicians are. So you get graded as a moderate, and you live in Colorado. We were talking about Colorado earlier. You say, oh, I don't have any moderates. Do I have any conservatives in the area? Oh, yeah, Jeff Hurd and Gabe Evans. What about any centrists? Oh, no centrists. So what about the farthest right? Yeah, Laura Boebert, Jeff Crank. Heard about those. Any liberals? Oh, good amount. Looks like liberals are kind of leading the pack. And then you go Joe Neguse, the sole progressive in Colorado. Again, these are preliminary grades. They are based solely off of my opinion. I want to get a review board together. I want to be, have as many people educated on policy in here and have it be about policy. As you see, cut through rhetoric and misinformation by grading leaders on real policy beliefs. So you're not getting your information based off what people are saying about people. It's about what they're actually going to do, what they have done, stuff like that. And then if you're, if you're feeling generous, we got a lot of work we got to do. We have a website we're creating. We have content we're going to be making here. We're a small team. And, doing all this for free as of now. And, sourcing out to volunteers who are incredible, and I want to thank each and every one of them from the bottom of my heart for, helping me make this thing that for so long was just a spreadsheet I maintained, turning it into an actual service that can help people. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to me every single person who came out and watched tonight. Really appreciate it, and this will not be a one-off. Not only for election night, obviously, but as PoliGrade continues to grow, you will be getting more and more content, mostly news, and continuing along the theme of getting your information from someone who's solely interested in informing you of the truth and of what's important. If, Donald Trump gets up on the roof for some reason, starts answering questions, sure, that's crazy. And that could probably get a day's worth of news coverage. But is it important? No. Especially if it happens the same day that a plane crashes in Kentucky and people want to know what the hell happened here. But nope, every channel's talking about some random garbage that's going to get them more attention. So, you'll also be getting information by someone who is not compromised. I receive no money from either political party. And with the head of CBS being a longtime Trump supporter, the head of CNN being a longtime Republican and Trump supporter, NBC loudly proclaiming their favorite part of the 2024 election cycle was taking advantage of people's ignorance when it came to inflation and the economy and making fun of people from Nebraska for driving far enough to where it cost them more gas money than the money they were theoretically saving on bread. You got, Fox News obviously lost almost $1 billion for lying about the 2020 presidential election. And then you've got, what did I miss? ABC, they're, owned by Disney, and they're, kicking off anyone critical of any sort of right-leaning thing. So if you want to get your information from someone who wants to just tell you what's happening, what's important, what you should know about, who's running for what, how they're graded, what's going to the floor in the House and the Senate, how is the shutdown going, why is the shutdown happening, stuff like that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, really happy that we're getting this going, really thankful for everyone who came out, and grateful for any support that comes from this point forward. So thank you all so very much, and I will see you guys